we're set up so we can go.
Episode 10B.
Yes. I better do the intro.
I don't think we need to do the intro for this.
Well, this isn't a normal one, is it?
No, this is an extra. Brucey bonus. We can still say that because Operation U-Tree, as yet, have found nothing on Forsyth at the time of recording.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, U-Tree, they haven't found anything on you either.
Yeah. My in-laws live on U-Tree Road, actually.
Do they?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I shan't say which city or town.
There probably aren't that many U-Tree roads.
There are quite a few, I imagine.
Oh, there? Well, okay. Well, Operation U-Tree is going from strength to strength. there's still some to smoke out there, let's face it.
Yeah, so episode 10B, I mean, our numbering system's got a bit
10B,
crazy.
yes.
There was a 0, A and B as well, wasn't there?
Yeah. And I tell you what...
Who invented the decimalisation system? Have we covered that?
Yeah, they had a six decimal, didn't they?
Yeah. And most people we know used the 12 for a long time.
Makes sense.
Was it the French? Was it the Napoleonic Revolution? Was it in use before that? Or the American? It must have been a revolutionary idea in late 18th century Europe.
And people thought, wow, we can do tens.
Decimalisation of time, though, is a fascinating subject. If you've got time, go onto the Wikipedia page.
Didn't they have a 10-day week?
A 10-day week, and they had like extra months.
How long was the weekend, is the crucial question?
Well, I think it was still 2 days. I mean, there's a great Wikipedia article about it. And
well, that's not a good deal at all.
There's still some like French chaps who use the French Revolutionary calendar.
You're kidding?
And
the months?
Yeah, there's a website.
Blowy, snowy, and we haven't seen each other for a while, but I have been living in your head for the last couple of weeks because I've been editing the first series, and it's quite I mean, believe it or not, listener, these are actually edited. This is you think this is bad? You should have heard the first cuts. And it's quite a time-consuming process. I'm not particularly good at it, but so I have had your voice in my head literally 10 or 11 hours a day, every day.
What
for
a
3
joy.
weeks.
Well, the
It's
same
awful.
experience, presumably, as our listeners, who also, having listened to the first one, have gone, this is cracking stuff.
And presumably have just put down everything they were doing and listened back-to-back episodes.
Yeah,
We assume.
At least once.
Well, I mean, I would be slightly horrified if people had only listened to them once, but we have to accept there will be people who have ducked in and out. That's fair enough.
I suppose we can accept that.
I mean, I do that with other podcasts.
Yeah.
It's not. There are such things.
I think you jump in and out of this one sometimes.
Yes, I do. In fact, I do. Anyway, we have a wrap. We have finished the whole of Series 1. This is a real moment to pause and think about things.
The 5,000 years of human civilization, we've done about 3,000 of them.
We have. So we were only 10% of the way through literature, but we are 60% of the way through the timeline. So that's good. That is progress. Yeah. That is progress. We made half of that distance in the first episode.
less survives from that earlier.
Yeah.
However, what does survive is of such epic quality that, as we'll get onto in a bit, we have a bit of a problem.
Yeah. It has given us some problems. So we thought we would have a series roundup in which we discuss where we've got to and why we have so epically failed to do what we set out to do so far. Yep. But we will come back from it.
But where have you been? What have you been doing with your time since we last wrapped?
So I don't know about you, but I went on a dirty weekend last week.
Okay, well, I went on a dirty weekend, a different dirty weekend, I think the week before.
You and I haven't been on a dirty weekend for years.
Not since that one time in Ukraine.
well, God, the less said about that, the better. The authorities are still looking into that weekend.
Fortunately, most of the physical evidence has been destroyed by Russian troops. So.
Actually true. So I went on a dirty weekend, and I went to, inspired by everything you were saying in our Roman history episode, I wwent to the battlefield of Philippi.
Oh.
And it is
epic. I've never been.
It is epic. There's not much there, but there's some ruins, and there is it is a fantastically evocative landscape.
Remind us who.
So Philippi was the battle at which the Roman Republic died and was replaced by the Empire. So one side you've got Brutus and Cassius, the men who killed Caesar with a huge army. On the other side you've got Mark Antony, Caesar's best mate, who's sort of taken over the mantle, and Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, who goes on to become the Emperor Augustus. Of course, they themselves will fall out after the battle and they will end up fighting each other for the crown. But first they have to defeat Brutus and Cassius in what was an epic battle. It went on for about 2 weeks. There were 47 legions at Philippi. It was the biggest battle of the ancient world.
I mean, I think the Roman Republican side, the sort of Brutus and Cassius, the Senate had been hoping that after the death of Caesar, that essentially the Roman Republic would be restored. That he was a dictator just like everyone else. No, he was never emperor. That's a common misconception. He's the dictator of Rome. A legal position. It doesn't have the connotations.
Got that wrong.
Doesn't work. Doesn't have the connotations that it has later. The word, but
Right.
then of course, but actually, the Caesarean party, they want to keep it going.
Yes.
They want to sort of formalise it. So this is where that's really settled.
That's exactly
Decisively.
right. Decisively, and it ends up with Brutus and Cassius having to kill themselves, and spoiler alert: the Republic died, and with it died any sort of sense of democracy.
We talked about this
2000 years.
before. Rome TV series, cracking episode.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, it's a good one. That.
Yeah. So.
I had a good time. Now, but where did you go on your dirty weekend?
Syracuse.
Oh, fantastic.
In Sicily. So we'd like to go to Sicily in September. When the weather's turned here, but before it has in Southern Europe. Exactly. So just for a few days, looked at what was cheap. Was looking around, and somehow I thought, Syracuse. It's somewhere I hadn't really even given much thought to. Never been to Sicily before.
Right.
And then we thought, this is the space where the Athenians were decisively defeated in a massive naval battle in the Peloponnesian War. Yeah. As taught us by Thucydides. Yeah. I took my copy with me. I sat on this rock sort of jutting into the sea, watching people dive in, went for a swim myself, and I thought,
that's where it happened.
Here, the war, according to Thucydides, turned decisively against Athens.
The Athenians. So this is great. So our holidays have been inspired by each other and by this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to go. Obviously there's great food and opportunity to go for a swim, but cracking if you can visit the Archimedes Museum whilst you're there.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, and I hope that our listeners will be inspired by some of the books that we have been talking about during this series to go to the places where they were written, where they were set, and see some of it for themselves. And we have had quite a lot of response from our listeners, which is great. We want to encourage that, and we will hopefully move to I think I can say, if you agree, that in future episodes we will try and incorporate some of the feedback from the fans in each episode.
Like a platonic dialogue.
Like a dialogue. We want this to be a dialogue with the listeners, absolutely, but without the hard platonic fucking. We've had some feedback over the course of this series. Obviously, it's grown from the first episode, and we thought we would do this wrap-up episode and we would talk about some of the feedback. So can I give you some of the things that people have said?
What's been in our inbox? What's popped into our sack?
What has popped into our sack? We've had some lovely things in our sack, including from Sebastian. He's written in to say, I'm very grateful for this, he said, "This is puerile filth, posing," and he spelt that with 2 S's, which is interesting, "as educational content." Puerile filth. So I was very pleased to get this. This was actually the first message we got in. First bit of feedback, and I was just so pleased that we got a listener who totally understood what we were aiming for, because that is exactly what we have set out to achieve, and
mission
accomplished. And with that in mind, I wanted to say to you, Sebastian, if you're still listening, hopefully, pedicabo ego vos te et irrimado, and
but that's fine. That's literature. You're not just being insulting.
No, that is Catullus, and and that's what we are all about. So it sounds like maybe you're not the kind of audience that we were necessarily going for.
But if you recommend us to your friends. Fuck
off. But yes, do recommend us to your friends, to your more puerile friends, and learn to spell. Now, who else we had in? We got someone who wrote in, said, could they remain anonymous? They said, "You guys would make great teachers, but you do swear quite a lot. Do you think that young people in education would benefit from these podcasts if they were less sweary?" I don't know what you think about that. You were a teacher, of course.
I wasn't, but there was, that book, what's it called, A Curious Incident in a Dog in the Night Time, which is a reference to Sherlock Holmes mystery. But they published 2 versions of it. One which had swearing in for the adults, and then a sort of more sanitised version to read to children. Right. It always occurs to me it's probably the wrong way around, because totally. As a grown-up, I'm not, I know the evidence seems to the contrary, but I'm not that amused by reading like hardcore adult content. No. But teenagers swear like troopers. It's like sailors.
Well, kids do.
Yeah, exactly.
My daughter dropped the C-bomb the other day.
Catullus.
And she's under 7, so there you go. So yes, if you don't like the swearing, you can fuck off. But I'm glad that you think that we would make great teachers, because at least one of us has. There is a question though, a theme that came out of some of the feedback, which is, do we know what we're talking about?
I mean, this is a reasonable challenge. And I'm not sure what you need to know what you're talking about. I mean, I know what I intend to say. I mean, we've read the books.
Yes, in most cases.
We've read
most of them.
We've read the books, and we have generally got a a bit of an understanding of the background culture in which they emerged. You are clearly quite interested in Greek history and culture.
In Roman.
And I'm Roman, and we've taken a bit of interest in each other's areas.
Definitely.
So, well, absolutely not an expert. I mean, if we could have someone come on a classical expert, they'd make mincemeat of us.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? And I think that what we're aiming for here, and what I would encourage our listeners to aim for, is a situation in which you can get quite easily to the point where you know more about most things as an self-educated person than anyone else apart from people who are experts in those things, and that's where you want to be.
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
Because you want to. Because once beyond that, you can't know about everything.
You can't. Not anymore. No. Not anymore. It's been hundreds of years since people could know everything because there's too much to know.
Anthony Wood, the antiquarian,
we discussed the last person who knew everything. Yeah. Exactly. And even he didn't produce anything, clearly, because we never heard of anything that he's done, so he just knew about lots of stuff.
Too busy reading.
And there's too much to read. Now, the point is, if you can read the 100 greatest
cracking
books...
podcast you would have made there.
It would have been a great podcast. If only he
maybe when we get to talking about our dinner,
maybe he should be chatting down.
I've never even thought about him before.
Yeah.
I suppose we don't really know anything about him, whether he was interesting or not. But he did know everything.
Well, that would in itself is quite interesting.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating. I think that there is something to be said for breadth.
Yeah.
And I think the point is, if you read the 100 greatest books, you will have an amazing breadth. And that's kind of the pitch, I guess, that we have. We're obviously not experts, but...
but not just read them, and listen to this as well, because it's about making the connections. I think this is the key thing. It's to understand the sequence that they happen in. I mean...
It brings so much more to the party, doesn't it, if you see it in the bigger picture.
So
I think our education system doesn't do this.
When I was in Syracuse, I was there at the ruins of this huge, I think it's the second largest Greek theatre in the world, because Syracuse, even though it's in Sicily, was part of Greater Greece. Yes, of course. Not 100% sure this is right, but I believe Medea had its premiere there.
Oh, really?
And they're putting on a performance of the Iliad, an Italian play version. You're thinking, so I was there with my wife, and she was asking me, I don't really understand anything about that and stuff. Well, strap yourself in, darling. So she actually
podcast you need to listen to.
She got a live version of that podcast over 3 days, 10.5 blistering hours of it, as I explained the whole thing, covering both parts.
Poor lady. Well, I was going to say, she didn't get the good half.
I did an impression of you.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. And in fact, you're doing an impression of me right now. Well. You're being amusing and erudite. Now, we have another bit in our inbox here from MC2003, who said, "This podcast is absolutely brilliant. Thank you for making books fun. It's totally changed my mind. In particular, I'm really enjoying reading the history and have just bought myself Xenophon's Anabasis."
Classic.
Oh, what a good lad. Or ladess, I'm not sure. But a true champion, either way. Well done, that's exactly what we want.
Well, that mission accomplished. I mean, if we've done nothing else, we've got another person to read the Anabasis.
Exactly.
And hopefully they'll change their name from MC 2003 to MCNNIII.
I thought you were going to say MC 401 BC. Excellent. Now, so, thank you for that feedback, and we've got some more specific feedback which we'll come to in a minute. Now, the next thing to say is I love lists, as you know. I'm a little bit anal about these things.
Really?
I've never files for lists.
Your list room.
I have a list room, yeah. I've got a filing cabinet full of lists as well. I thought I'd make a list of what have we lost. What have we effectively, if reluctantly, consigned to the bonfire of history. Previously survived previous bonfires of history, but now is in the bin.
Vesuvius has erupted again.
Yeah, and
we left this in a pile. At the top.
And we could only carry... Yeah, this is... Well, we basically kicked it in, didn't we? So, what have we lost? We've lost, I'm afraid, all of ancient Egyptian literature.
Every word. Well, I say word. Every
picture.
Every picture of a bird.
and a funny squirrely line with an
eye.
Yeah. We have lost Horace.
I mean,
a big loss, and this is, as we will see in a minute, has enraged the Horace Club, which we talked about in I think episode 4.
It's a foregone conclusion because of
the whole
Horace Club
Horace
drama.
Versus Juvenile Club issue, yeah. But
I mean, it's basically like one of the great London gang stories.
It is, but with Roman poetry. We have lost, for me, I think one of the most controversial losses, Marshall. I was gutted to see Marshall.
You were sad about it at the time.
And you were surprisingly, you were cackling with glee when you chucked Marshall into the flames, which I was not happy with.
I don't want to burn Marshall, but under the rules we have laid down, he had to be offered up.
Yeah, he did. We've also lost, of course, Seneca.
That was
a bad loss. Lucretius, and I think we hesitated on Lucretius, didn't we? We wobbled on him, but we had to commit it to the flames.
He was good fun.
He was good fun.
But he can't make it into the top 100.
He can't make it into the top 100. But I think we both agree that. Very controversially, we lost Demosthenes and Cicero.
Now, Cicero's loss was to me, so
and
I mean, I have
not just to you, not just for you.
I have a bust, a metre away from me, a bust of Emperor Augustus.
Oh, yes.
I have been trying to let my partner buy. Let me buy another bust, but she thinks that it will clog up the house with things. She doesn't quite have the idea. Yeah. But if I was going to get one, it would be a Cicero.
Cicero. Yeah, and he's got that wonderful, very immediately recognisable face, and big jowls. He's obviously balding.
Looks like David Bamber.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. It was a big loss. And we basically lost them because we have Plutarch and we've saved Plutarch. And for the same reason, we lost both Arrian and Caesar. We lost Caesar.
But only because of Plutarch.
But only because of Plutarch. Also, and it really does make me feel sick to remember this, we lost Procopius, the secret history, and we lost Tacitus. Absolutely huge.
Who did we save instead of Tacitus?
Who did we save instead of Tacitus? I've got them written down here. I think we saved Livy. We saved Livy instead of Tacitus, and this has generated some controversy.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Well, when you say it like that in the cold light of day.
I know. Right, well, that's why we're having this episode, so we can just have a little think about things, because we have got a bit of feedback here from Liz, who has written in, and this is what she has to say. Wait, what? No! I love you, but I'm going to file for a divorce. Interesting form of words. Not sure you can divorce a podcast, but there you go. If you lose Tacitus and keep Livy. We were all grateful, Liz goes on to say, when the Library of Alexandria burned down. I'm not sure we were, Liz, because we lost Livy, or most of it. We were glad it burned, she's gone on to say. And at this point I was thinking, is she a Christian or something? What's her beef? Just a very enthusiastic Tacitus.
Yeah,
she
loves Tacitus.
And then she's added, that's just shite. And then she signed off by saying, P.S. I only drink to forget.
Well, she's clearly a philosophical woman with issues.
Yes. Well, I mean, I would say, that's exactly why I drink as well, to forget. So I have a certain sympathy with Liz, but I that sympathy flew out of the window when she said not only was she cross to lose Tacitus, but she was glad that the Library of Alexandria burned down. We're glad it burned.
Aren't we, though, in many ways, creating our own fire?
Yes, we are. And
in the library of the world.
Yeah, and we're committing to it. Horace, Tacitus, Cicero, and Julius Caesar.
I now that you say it, I do struggle with some of the decisions.
We've also had a separate thing in from Tom, who said, "Hang on, why are you losing Livy? Why are you keeping Livy rather, but losing Polybius, who didn't even make it into our long list, because Polybius is better on Hannibal than Livy is." And that's a very interesting point, and not one that I necessarily disagree with.
Well, yeah, I mean, we never had that discussion because you didn't make us into our long list, and there were a number of other obvious objections. Like, I'm still quite upset that we didn't do Josephus.
Yeah, Josephus, yes.
Josephus,
who
I think I would have argued for strongly.
Yes.
Having studied him a lot at university. I think there might be an argument towards the end of doing some pickup episodes. The best of those who didn't make the cut.
The best of the rest. Because for me, it was Sallust. We didn't have Sallust. In fact, we mentioned him briefly when we were talking
Wasn't
about
where a rebel fleet was gathering in Return of the Jedi? It was called Sallust.
Sallust.
No, it was Star System. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the only other thing we know about Sallust from
the Emperor knew already. It was fine. It was a trap.
It was a trap. It was a trap. Well, Sallust, if you remember, he, according to Catullus, had a slutty wife and a talking cock.
Well, a lot of Romans had slutty wives, as we discussed at length.
Yeah, or alleged to. I'm talking cock, not so sure.
Are we talking about this was a chicken?
No, I think it was his actual cock. Catullus imagines it talking.
Right.
So there you go.
That's perfectly normal to imagine
that. I think you would go and get it checked out, wouldn't you? What would it say if you had a dialogue with your own cock? I wouldn't want to know, actually, in your case.
I mean,
just help!
You know. There's a great work called Dialogue with Philo the Jew, which we didn't study by Justin Martyr.
Oh, yeah.
In a dialogue with, Gerald the Cock. Hasn't made it on the ages.
No, and probably for the best. Yeah. We've had some big losses. We've also had some complaints about other people who didn't make it into the long list. So Hesiod, obviously a very big name that didn't go through. And the reason that we didn't put it through was because we thought that the enumeralish was so obvious obviously an influence, and Hesiod wasn't sort of taking it that much further forward.
Yeah, there's like Euhemerus as well, who would have been potentially where the idea that the Roman gods were real people who'd become sort of mythologized.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting theory, but the work itself, it's not really worth reading.
But it's got all that stuff.
The idea
don't piss in towards the sun. It's a bit odd.
Now, what is it about pissing in the sun?
I don't know.
Any of our readers, I mean, it's great to get all this feedback, but
none of you piss into the wind. That's the good advice.
None of you have answered come up with any sort of theory.
No.
Just about the pissing into the sun,
including someone who wrote in on the subject of Hesiod to say that we had ignored. Apparently, there's a Hurrian, which I think is like Hittite language, sort of theogony, which is the intermediate step between Inurulish and Hesiod. So this guy called Uli Kumi, I hope I pronounced that right.
My Hurrian is rusty.
No, right, exactly. So as is mine, which is why we didn't talk about it. So I'm sorry that we didn't mention that, but there you go. Other things not mentioned. Yes, Epicurus. So we didn't have Epicurus, and someone wrote in. I thought it was quite a nice idea that we should have had. We didn't have Epicurus or Marcus Aurelius, who of course was emperor. Like Caesar, he was an emperor who wrote a book. Very interesting. He was basically a philosopher king in the Platonic tradition.
Played by Richard Harris in Gladiator.
Which
is a absolutely brilliant film, despite almost none of it being historical.
And we see, for me, that slightly spoiled it. Did slightly spoil it for me. And
Commodus was emperor, and interestingly, he was the son of Marcus Aurelius, and very few
that's where it went
emperors
wrong.
passed it on to their biological children.
This is the problem, right? This is the reason why I'm so angry with Marcus Aurelius, because that is basically, if you read a Gibbon, which we'll come to in a later series, that is where things start going wrong, right? They have the adoptive system, like ever since Julius Caesar, you adopt someone who's good.
Mainly because their children were dying, though. I don't know whether it was necessarily, design or requirement.
Or just that it just sort of forced to it. But I think it's definitely a problem when Marcus Aurelius says, no, I'm going to let my own son take over, and of course he's absolutely hopeless. He's not ready for it at all. He's totally unqualified. He's been spoiled since birth.
Yeah, it's not.
And that's where the empire starts going
people
down.
born to the purple were always a problem. Yeah, so I mean, it was a cracking film, Gladiators.
It is a good film, but I don't enjoy reading Marcus Aurelius because I just think, oh, what a pompous old ass, and then he was the one who screwed it up. So, but it would have been a great episode to have him against Epicurus.
Well, just a mini episode here, literally 30 seconds on this subject. And obviously we also discussed briefly the Memoirs of Hadrian by Marguerite Yourcenar, which is a cracking book about a long letter written between Hadrian to Marcus Aurelius, who was the next emperor but one.
That's right. Yeah.
But I read a theory when I was doing a bit of research that the meditations were unknown until about the second millennium.
You're kidding.
And as a result, we only have it from like a number of manuscripts, and there's a genuine academic question mark over whether Marcus Aurelius is the author of the Meditations. They are obviously ascribed to him now, but it may well have been this thing which there was an anonymous work which has been attached to his name because he was famously
a
Stoic philosopher. And actually, I assumed that we had a sort of unbroken transmission of these books and that they were widely read in the sort of
you'll think it's like
late second and third century.
That he's like in I Claudius, it's a fake thing, but it was sort of lost at the time.
Or Alan Massey's book of books about Augustus and Tacitus. Right. So again, I haven't delved into it a lot, but had we done an episode on that, there might have been a question about whether Marcus Aurelius is actually the author of Meditations.
Well, that makes me even more determined not to have them in my even in my long list. So,
well, there you go.
To the flames with them, reluctantly. So where does that leave us? Oh yeah, Diogenes, who we last came across living in a barrel and openly masturbating to show his philosophical contempt for...
It's all you can afford with the rental market like it is now.
Absolutely, a barrel. Bloody big barrel.
Barrel in London was that you about?
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. We had someone wrote in and said that we had been talking about Greek historians writing in Greek as if they were Roman historians. So you mentioned Procopius, and also, of course, Polybius, and indeed he used the phrase "you fuckwits." So I think he probably felt quite strongly that we. But to be fair, I don't think
they're Roman period. I don't think we ever said anything.
I don't think we said it was Latin history. I think we said it was Roman history.
Yes,
and I think that's the point, which we maybe
didn't
explain it properly. But
history of Romans.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone's not muted their phone.
Sorry.
That's disgraceful. disgraceful.
That was disgraceful. Let me just make
Another
sure
bit of
I think,
feedback coming in.
yeah.
I think it's fair enough. We could have made that clearer.
We should have made that
But I
clearer.
think it really makes a difference.
No. Now, we had Ollie wrote in to say, where's Pindar?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good question. Where the fuck is Pindar? When you need him. As we did come across him briefly when Alexander the Great burned Thebes to the ground.
He's makes a cameo, yeah.
But he left Pindar's house as the only thing standing, which I kind of think Pindar's, he's already done all right out of that. He should count his blessings.
His house and books haven't been burnt, so...
Yeah, exactly.
The good thing is, if you don't make it to the list, well, I suppose your books are by default destroyed.
By default destroyed.
Yeah. You have to be on the list.
He's still in his house.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by a wasteland of dead bodies, and all his neighbouring houses burnt down, and everyone he knows dead. But still,
could be worse. His son could have been chopped in half and had 10,000 people march through.
Between the halves. Exactly. I don't know what he's complaining about, frankly. We had Ed wrote in to say Sulpicia, another female love poet. You should have mentioned her. And it's a very good point. Now, the reason I didn't, I have read Sulpicia. There are only 6 surviving poems, very short, a paragraph each. They sort of, a bit like Catullus, they operate as a series. It's very interesting, but it's so slight as a work, I thought it couldn't.
I mean, Sappho was surviving as that, but we had to. I mean, it's probably worth addressing at this point that our
Sappho situation.
Well, no, just our list has been very male heavy. I mean,
I've run some stats. It's 19-1 men to women.
In a world of is that of the total?
Well, no, that's just the ones who've gone through. Yeah. But it would have been worse if we'd done the long list.
And nowadays society is rightly so interested in making sure that we recognise the diversity of people. It's worth pointing out that we're talking about a time where society was. This is a world which is far less diverse as we would understand it today. But it is diverse in terms of the fact there are still men and women, and there aren't many women on our list. But the truth is that we are reflecting the time as we know it. There just aren't very many women authors from this period. So, Sulpicia could have been an argument to do it, but we would have, against some of the other people we were doing it, we would have been doing it for tokenism. I don't think that's fair. As we go through, there are plenty of incredibly accomplished authors who are coming. But it is a sad case that the total 100 list will not be 50-50.
Certainly I think that's right.
But when someone in thousands of years' time does the next 5,000 years of human history, one would hope would be a much better showing and far more 50-50.
Yeah, I think that's right. And to be fair, you could say that because only one woman made it to the long list and she went through, the conversion rate for the girls here is fantastic. And Sappho smashed it out of the park. Yeah. And also, by the way, passed the Bechdel test. Although it's worth pointing out she basically ruined everything by killing herself over a man, which was a weak showing after everything.
After everything else.
Yeah. No, interesting point about Sappho, because we've got too many people through, and the question is raised. Woman. Well, obviously it'd be uncomfortable to do that, but there is the issue that she survives only in fragments. So someone had written, I think it was Tom again, who wrote in and said, basically we've already lost Sappho, so it's an odd thing to take her through, but the thing is, the fragments that we have are so tantalising and so excellent that I just think
there's so little of it.
It's so early and so so powerful,
sublime, and sophisticated. I think we keep. Well, I suppose the question is, what are you asking me? Are we attempting to narrow it down?
Well,
we've got 20.
We've got 20.
20 out of 10.
We've got 20 out of 10. So, which is obviously a completely catastrophic showing. Although, as you point out, that is because there has already been a destruction that has lost most of the
except the great stuff.
Except the great stuff. So this is,
and we don't want to keep the later books.
No.
Which don't measure up to the greats just because there's 10 books surviving from each series. Yeah, exactly. However, the problem is that we don't want to have too many episodes in the future seasons where
nothing goes through.
Actually, this is just worth reading at all. Because the problem is part of the conceit of how this works is we're suggesting it's a battle. And yes,
I mean, ideally you'd have one going through each time, but it just hasn't worked out. We thought it would, but it hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah, so are we viewing that each episode is a battle between the 2 or 3, or in some cases 4 books that we're doing, or is each season between? Is each season in one, or is it the whole thing? Are we going to have rounds later? I mean, we set this problem early. I don't think the problem's going to completely go away. It will get easier because I don't think these 10 episodes represent, in my mind, the peak of what we're going to do. I mean, still continue to listen. It's still kind of...
Well, it's the peak in the sense that because of this winnowing process, and we're doing the whole of the 3,000 years, we're only looking at stuff that is already absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
and has been acknowledged by humans to be absolutely brilliant for thousands of years. So this is always going to be the hardest series, I think, is the point. But it's an interesting one. And so we had an interesting suggestion, though, from McBrain. That can't be a real name, can it? But possibly? Maybe.
Isn't there that thing called, like, McBrain's Faggots?
McBrain's Haggis?
No, faggots.
Haggis, is it?
Yeah, it's some sort of Scottish food you get in the frozen.
It's Scottish, yeah. But maybe.
I think, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because he actually says...
maybe he's one of the faggot McBrains.
It's perfectly possible, yes. Well, McBrain, if you're listening, write back and say, and also an apology is in order because McBrain has said, how is it that Homer is taking up 2 slots? In other words, why can't you have the Iliad and the Odyssey as a single work, the complete works of Homer, whereas Plato and Aristotle, they're going through as their complete works.
Well, I don't think we did say the complete works. I thought with Aristotle we were saying we were doing the Nicomachean Ethics, the Poetics, and the Politics.
Sure, but we are bundling up different works in a single book.
I mean, how are we going to do like Shakespeare and things?
How are we going to do Shakespeare?
Yeah.
And that is a question that McBrain himself has asked. He also says at the end, please stop insulting Scottish people. Sorry, any Scottish listeners that we have?
You're Scottish, aren't you?
Well, I'm Scottish, yeah.
So you can do
I'm
it's fine.
I'm a freeborn Scotsman.
To be
proud. I get a free pass.
Yeah.
I get a free pass. But you've got to be careful insulting the Scots. We have been very fighty since the days of Mons Graupius, as Tacitus has reminded us. But I think it's an excellent point. So I think the problem is, we thought we were going, okay, what are the 100 greatest books? How do you define a book? It's very hard. There are clearly edge cases. Clearly, when we get to Shakespeare, we're probably going to want to say the complete works go through as a book, a single book. That was how it was published. The Platonic dialogues were, have always been packaged up together.
Yeah. Is it a book? I think there's an element. We're not being consistent on this, but if you, the listener, can go down to Waterstones and buy this.
And I've never seen an Iliad and Odyssey. They're so huge.
Yeah, but you can buy the Platonic dialogues.
Yes.
5 dialogues.
Yeah, totally.
So there's an element because we're doing this as for people
to be saving.
For people who like our listeners who want to know what to go and read. But
what's going to be in your library?
I agree. We haven't been 100% consistent. Well,
I think we've been deliberately inconsistent because I don't think it's possible to be consistent. But I think it's an interesting live question. But then I was thinking, okay, what happens when you get to Tolstoy? I was trying to think of someone else who, like Homer, is going to end up potentially with more than one book on the list, and there are very few people who will get. But Tolstoy, would you really say War and Peace and Anna Karenina is a single book? You couldn't say that.
No.
So I think you have to
have
2 slots for Homer.
Austen, talk about great female writers.
Yeah,
I mean,
Do you get more than Pride and Prejudice?
Sensibility as well. Yeah. Or Emma.
Yeah, there's some good shortcuts. Oh, I can't wait till we come to
the Kate Beckinsale version.
Excellent. Yeah. So basically, I think we're being deliberately fudgy at the boundaries because we have to be.
Yep.
But equally, there's no way we're not letting in the Odyssey and the Iliad, as we discussed back in episode 2. Some people, again, have written in with some other interesting points. Sarah wrote in to say, I love Breakfast of Champions, thank you. Great lists, but what about Apollonius of Rhodes? The Argonautica. This is the story of Jason the Argonauts, of course. A brilliant story, she says, and perhaps the first ever heist plot. Interesting. So her argument is it spawns an entire genre, or subgenre, I suppose.
We did mention the story of Jason the Argonauts when we talked about Medea.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, and we did recommend the Ray Harryhausen film. Could we keep that and a DVD player and perhaps lose the book?
So are we allowed? Because
then you get Ray Harryhausen.
You get Harryhausen, who of course was Bradbury's best man, as we found out in our pilot. Yeah, I think that the shortcuts are separate. So I think that if you've got a good shortcut of something that's maybe not quite in the top 100, I think that is a good way of us, hedging our bets.
In our cave with 100 books,
and
we'll put in a copy of Jason and the Argonauts.
I think that's a good shout.
But
thank you,
definitely Jason and the Argonauts rather than Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is a great film.
It's a classic, but it's not
up to the same standard. No.
We've also had something from Octavia. I'm thinking about it. Maybe that's not her real name. But she's talking about Augustus, your man Augustus. We've got the bust looking down at us now.
Yeah.
It says, you claim to love Augustus. He's talking to you here.
Yeah, I do.
But you've not even mentioned that Augustus wrote the Res Gestae, which was this, I guess it's like it's more of an inscription, isn't it?
It's a big inscription.
This kind of, this little...
It's kind of like a short autobiography. It's a brag. It's a brag sheet.
Yeah.
This is what I did.
Look at me, I'm the best.
Yeah.
For the following reasons.
I mean, they literally called him the best. That's what his name means.
Yeah, I guess so.
Pretty much.
August, yeah.
The great one. We
Is
haven't
it a great
mentioned
work
it.
of literature, though?
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Is it a book?
Not really. It's more of a very long inscription, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but a good shout. But I think we can just about justify ourselves. And now we come on to the difficult thing, and here it gets getting personal. So I had not just one, not just two, but three responses from the chairman of the Juvenile Club, which of course I'm a happy, famous. We've talked about this before. Famously,
I was delighted to finally get an invitation to attend, but I didn't. I couldn't make it on that occasion.
Yeah, but I think
I was washing my hair.
Well, it was a great honour that was accorded to you. I don't think you appreciate. You don't turn down the Juvenile Club, and you also don't fuck with the Juvenile Club because the chairman has written. And if you remember from I think it was episode 4, he 2 times, if that's not an aggressive word, and I hope so. You're not listening, as he is also a member of the Horace Club, and he was outraged that we got rid of Horace, and he says this: I note that you're reading these books in translation. That's not a good start. I could already feel myself getting defensive. And then he goes on to say, he made various other points, which I don't really want to go into because it hurt too much. But then he says, the idea that you would ditch Horace and keep Ovid is, of course, absurd.
Ouch.
And then he says, separate message he's written in again, and he says, this was in response to episode 10, I would be glad to see Plato's Republic in the bin. But of course, note again the of course, there are those who like it. Oh. And then a final message came in, just one word: shameful. Shameful.
Was that
no
any particular episode?
No. I think that was probably covering the whole series. I mean, at least he listened to them all.
Yes.
So
with a pen in hand. I think the translation one is a fair enough point, because we've talked at times when we talked about the Roman poetry.
Yeah.
We indicated the struggle we had, that sometimes we're being told that the
This
writing is
amazing.
superb,
Yeah.
and we're not reading it in the Latin. We're sort of looking at the Latin version on the page and noticing that it's much shorter and it's clever, and we talked
But
about that.
Yeah, but we're not getting the benefit, and we're assuming that most of our listeners.
Well,
will
that's
not
the
have
point. So, one of the issues about Juvenile Club, which puts me off slightly, is that my Latin is pretty rusty. So, when I say pretty rusty, I did 2 years of Latin at school, and I dropped
You're lucky.
it.
Most schools don't know.
And I regret not keeping up to the extent that I really encouraged my children to do it, and was disappointed when each and every one of them dropped it. I then had to learn Greek, but it was sort of like New Testament rather than,
Famously failed your exam.
Yeah, famously failed my exam, passed it at 42% of my resit at university. And my Greek's actually probably got slightly better, but the point is, in neither of these cases am I able to read anything without a concordance and a dictionary in pretty slow time. Exactly. So the idea that I could sit down and even begin the Iliad in classical Greek, it would take me years. So obviously we've had to read them in translation, and we're looking for different translation, and we're assuming that our readership, because our listenership rather, who are people who are listening to this because they want to become more informed, have not read these books. And if we've made that assumption, we can assume that they have not studied classics, and therefore cannot read Greek or Latin.
Most people haven't had that advantage, and
no.
So I think
it's a snobbish objection from the
okay,
because
you don't understand. I'm going to get kicked out of Juvenile Club
to turn around and say, the whole point is you were told that culture was not for you. That's in our tagline. Okay?
Yes.
People saying it doesn't count to say that you've read the Odyssey if you've read it in English. It's still like 800 pages long.
Yes.
It's a significant commitment.
So if you could say something to the chairman of the Juvenile Club, what would it be?
Poo to you with knobs on.
And I would just say, I'm sorry.
I'm reading in translation.
I don't want to get kicked out of the Juvenile Club.
Actually, I don't know if you heard in the news, there's a new translation of the Iliad has come out.
Yes, it's the first woman who translated the Odyssey into English, and she's now done the Iliad. She's not the first woman who's done the Iliad, but because she did them in the other order, interestingly. But I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds like a fantastic...
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I don't know if that gives us any brownie points in front of this high and mighty Juvenile Club.
Stop it with the Juvenile Club. The only reason...
If I'm going to read 2 versions of it and make comparisons, I actually have an abridged version as well, which is a concise translation. Presumably that's even worse. But I don't care. I don't care.
The only reason that I'm still in the Juvenile Club is because, of course, Juvenile has made it into the shortlist. just by the skin of his teeth, and he had to burn up his friend Marshall in front of him. But here's a question for you, right? So one that you mentioned this point about if you go to Waterstones and you buy a book in translation, right? And this is something that's come out from some of the comments that we've had. In our pilot episode, we famously kept one book, but we kept the back cover of another one.
Yeah.
The question is that allowable? And therefore, could you do something like, for example...
We use it as a bookmark. So
well, yeah, exactly. And this is how things survive sometimes. You get a fragment of something inside something else.
In a wine bottle.
In a wine bottle with Catullus. Also things like Marshall and Juvenal, you could argue that they're so short and they were friends and they were writing, partially...
You need to give it up on Marshall. He's gone. There's nothing to save. We burnt it.
Well, what can I say? I'm devastated.
It's that episode of Red Dwarf where they crash on that ice moon and they have to burn all the books slowly.
Oh, God.
And they go down to Lolita and they decide to save page 43.
Excellent. Is that the Oxford Classics edition, or it's going to make quite a difference? Which page 43?
Presumably that's on our list.
It will be.
Yeah.
So, he is. I'm not sure that that's the book that I need to refresh my memory of whether we do that.
I've never read Lolita, I have it.
You fucking lived it.
I have it on my bookshelf. But it's the sort of thing I get...
With page 43 turned down. You've only read page 43. None of the context.
I've seen the films, of course.
Yeah.
But the...
Good shortcut.
Very good shortcut. Both,
James Mason, I think.
No, I keep on meaning to take it on holiday, because it's one of a tough book to get into. But there's something about reading Lolita on the plane
with a much younger wife sitting next to you.
Well, partly because I think the perception of what the book is about versus the actual genius of the book means that people would look at you oddly rather than go, look, it's a great of Russian literature.
Yeah.
I'll be written in English, but
No, I mean it's an interesting point.
Cut this whole section.
Cut this whole section. We're just digging ourselves deeper. No, but so to return to my original question, Tacitus, obviously one of the biggest losses. That's partly because, as we said during the Roman history episode, he wrote several great books rather than one great book, arguably, or his greatest book is in fragments, and so he suffered from not having a complete works of Tacitus. Whereas Livy basically sneaked through because, in spite of what Liz said about how enraged she was, because through him we get not just the story of Hannibal, it was great, but we also get the whole of Roman history, or the bits that have survived through Livy, which we wouldn't have any others. So the question here, and this is something that our listeners have posed, is, are we talking about just for the quality, or is it also for the importance?
Yeah, I think, again...
Or is it both?
We've remained agile and flexible on this one. I think, Livy gives us so much. So there was a quality, quantity, equation that we were working on.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think we can establish two hard and fast rules, because if you're saying if we only had the same amount of Livy as we had of Tacitus, if it existed the same way,
exactly.
we might have come to a different answer.
But sentence by sentence, Tacitus is better, but you've got a hell of a lot more sentences in Livy.
Yeah, we've kept Sappho with.
That's true.
So we're not consistent.
We're going to have to be flexible because it's the nature of the beast, and you don't have long to think about this as you're rescuing the 100 books from the coming zombie army.
Throwing Marshall.
Oh, just leave off Marshall, God. I think there's an argument maybe for having a series honourable mention. Who this series. I think we might say of Tacitus, okay, he doesn't make it through, but he's the one that, for me, that I feel most guilty, sick to my stomach about the fact that we've had to lose him.
I would Tacitus, yes, but I think for me it would be Cicero.
Oh, Cicero, yeah.
Yeah, because he just writes so brilliantly.
It's a bad loss, isn't it? It's a very bad loss.
We still know about Cicero, but yeah, for me, I think that's the one that's not keeping me up at night, but
it's not
playing on my. I mean, I'll never be invited back to Cicero Club.
No, indeed. You basically
just eat a lot of chickpea hummus
and wang on about the Catalan conspiracy
at length. All right, yes,
we get it. What about Caesar though? Because we had another person wrote in to say, well, hang on, we talked about Caesar's Gallic Wars, but not about the Civil Wars, the story of his that he wrote again, his war against Pompey. Would it have been different? Should we have put that up as the book? Would that have given us a different result? I don't know.
I think it raises an interesting point going forward, and we just talked about it before about this series being particularly difficult. But from now on, because we don't want to have too many episodes where we don't pick anything.
No.
But I do think we should have to say that you have to be at least better than the Civil War by Caesar,
right?
To be worthy
to get over the line. So he's like the top of the of the promotion zone.
Yeah,
he's sitting at the top. He's the the best thing that we've that we've burned as a book.
As a single book.
I think
not
Cicero Tacitus
Cicero,
would be better writers, but the fact that we lost the Caesar, so you have to beat Julius Caesar to get on the list.
Yeah, so we end up in late antiquity or the Middle Ages and stuff, and then we're going, look, I don't know, we lived in Boethius' Consolations of Philosophy.
Right.
I suspect that one will get through. I'll make a good argument for it. But then we're looking at, like, I don't know, some random bit of Anselm or whatever, and we go, look,
is it actually better than Caesar?
Is it actually better than Caesar?
You see, that's made me feel better about losing Procopius as well, because clearly not as good as Caesar. Yeah. So, okay, I think that's good. But I think the same thing works in reverse, doesn't it? That we've got who's the weakest person that has got through, and do we potentially, if we end up with more than 100, knock him off? And I'm afraid I think the answer is our friend Juvenal. So, angry enough at everything that's happened to him.
Yeah,
he's been banished to Scotland, which, let's face it, is not a good result. Sorry, McBrain. And now he's going to have to spend the next 90 episodes.
He's not as angry, though, as the president of the juvenile club going to be with you.
If he finally gets kicked off by someone in the by Martin Amis or something, that would not be good. So I think that's okay. That's a good discipline for us going into the future, isn't it? Has to be better than Caesar, and if it's better than Juvenal finally loses his grip in the.
Yeah.
In other words, we need to retain the flexibility. In other words, in answer to your question from earlier, this is a group melee. Yeah. We're picking the best 100 books. We're not picking the best 10 books from each series.
Okay, good. So we basically have a Juvenal Caesar.
They're on the borderline. Yeah, exactly. That's the killing zone between Juvenal and Caesar. Now, speaking of angry men, I had an interesting thing in from Brian Long, who has said, and I didn't know this, that of Thucydides, another angry man, or a disappointed man perhaps, that after he was exiled...
His side did lose.
His side did lose, and he lost from his side as well.
And he's remarkably restrained about it in his book. I mean, he is actually writing some serious property. I mean,
yes.
I know we read it for the series, but I reread it as I sat looking out over the bay at Syracuse, where the Athenians were routed, enjoying a pizzolo, which is a local Sicilian sort of double-decker pizza. You know those cookies you get from Miss Millie's Cookies, which essentially are 2 cookies
folded over.
So one on top of the other, because a folded over one is a what's that called?
Calzone.
Calzone, yeah. So you imagine a pizza filled with cheese with another pizza on top. A pizzolo.
How's your diet going? It's funny you say this, because when I was at uni in the States, I got you had like a chip, you got a ticket that you could get one meal basically in the evening, right? But I worked out a brilliant scam. So they had, you could help yourself to one dish effectively from this buffet. And they had pizza, but it was sort of thin pizza, American style, but thin. So what you do is you take 5 slices of, stack them up, and then use the underside of a cardboard cup that you get for Coke or whatever, and squish them together. Happy days. You've got 5 pizzas for the price of 1.
I thought you were going to suggest that you got a whole plate's worth of pizza and then put your meal on top of it. So
I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
that's what Aeneas would have done, probably, isn't it? But anyway, I put on 2 stone in the course of my time in doing that every day.
You're looking very trim now.
I've lost some weight since then, but it's been going back on thanks to all the drinking as a result of this series.
Cheers.
Cheers. Excellent. We've had a couple of other things. Where's the Bible? I mean, I think we dealt with that previously.
We don't do religion. Like Tony Blair.
Yeah.
And Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.
It's cutting edge references like that. But no, we're not doing that. Like we didn't do Hippocrates.
No, we didn't. And actually, we had Dr. Fitzgerald wrote in on that and said, was it prejudice or ignorance? That was the reason we hadn't made it.
Prejudice.
It's prejudice.
Yeah,
that's the answer. It's prejudice.
Thanks for asking.
In my case, ignorance. In your case, prejudice.
I mean, that's actually our second podcast, prejudice or ignorance.
That's what we bring respectively to this party.
No. I mean, there's whole areas we've excluded. Mathematics. We didn't do Pythagoras.
Well, I think that's the point. It's science, isn't it? I mean, it's not science as we would now understand it, because I think he's got some funny views. But the Hippocratic Oath. I mean, great, amazing contribution he made. But
we're not doing the 100 most important. Discoveries or concepts.
Or to sit and read that on the beach.
Geometry. No,
Archimedes probably would.
And we haven't included the Bible because we've explicitly got a view that we do not do the religious text of any currently existing religion.
Well, this is how you got into trouble with the Enuma Elish, because we discovered that cult in Iceland where... for tax purposes, as far as I could tell, but possibly because of a real thing, just if anyone in that cult is listening, please don't sacrifice me to Bel Marduk. They worship the Babylonian gods.
So does that mean we actually have to remove it from
The enumeration is gone.
Yeah.
As you will remember from the re-recording we haven't yet done of episode 1,
Yeah.
when we finally realised that it is actually religious work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it made the long list, but it shouldn't have done, and it's been committed to the flames so that we don't annoy people who believe in it. Even though they
And
will
hold
be
it to be
annoyed.
sacred, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
For that
so you
reason
know it
it
makes
doesn't
sense.
survive. We just have to assume that, so that no one gets very angry, that all major religious works are in a separate vault.
Yeah, there is separate fault. Because let's face it, no one wants to have a conversation about burning the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran.
Yeah. And there's also sufficient copies of those books.
Yes.
With the chance of them being wiped out.
Well, they're the words of God. I mean, God can dictate them again, surely.
Let's...
And maybe do a better job next time.
Oh,
I don't want 3 versions.
we
Just give
are
me the
staring
correct
into
version.
danger.
Come on, God. Anyway, so that's why we don't go near religion.
Yeah.
Now, we had another interesting write-in from Victor, who has asked about how we rate overall the Greeks versus the Romans, and whether it was deliberate that we had an equal number of entries for both. And this was a complete accident, but apparently, and I did tot it up, Victor's absolutely right, 14 Greeks and 14 Romans, and then not counting Plutarch because he was a Greek writing about both, or Procopius, who was a late Greek writing about Roman emperors.
Yeah.
So and then obviously we had the ancient Egyptian and Sinleki Unini from Babylon. But
I remember.
even Stevens. But get this. Of those, the people who've gone through to the shortlist, again ignoring Unini, who's gone through, 12 Greeks, but only 6 Romans.
And I think that's the answer, because whilst, we've always said you're more of a Greek man and I'm more of a Roman man,
Right.
I have to give it to the Greeks. The playwrights,
Yeah.
the playwrights and Homer alone are a half of the 12 who've gone through.
Right, yeah. Homer gets them twice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
so
that's half of it.
and the Romans have some great ones, but we've not included Cicero, Tacitus, etc.,
Right,
as we said, Crucius, as we said. So
Yeah.
actually, or Caesar. So because of that, relatively few got through. Plus, also, like talking about my holidays in Syracuse and how Sicily is Greek, not
Right.
Latin. I think one has to indicate that actually Rome is, in terms of the, I know Rome was a vast empire, but in terms of the writers we're talking about, we are really talking about people who, broadly speaking, are from Rome itself.
Right.
Or like the city.
Or have ended up there, yeah.
Or have ended up there. Whereas we're talking about the Greek culture
Across the whole Greek
over
world.
the whole Greek world over a longer period.
Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, also because the Greek side of the empire survived through Byzantium and the West fell, I think that may have made a difference to like physically how many books survived that were from the Greek.
Yeah.
So
We've lost a lot of Roman
lost a hell of a lot of
we
Roman
didn't
stuff.
know.
It's interesting though, because one of the things that I've learned from this podcast is to be much more interested in the Romans. You've totally got me into them, but I think maybe the way I'm justifying in my head is that there are so many great characters that come out of Rome and that we've discovered through these podcasts. So we've got all these great Greek writers, but there are some really big personalities who unfortunately their works are not surviving into the
For me,
shortlist,
Roman history is more interesting. I know it's controversial, but Greek literature is greater. And I think,
that
but
makes
we
sense.
talked about it when we talked about Livy. I mean, Livy gives us all the Romans. Like, he gives us all the characters.
Yeah.
If this was a podcast
Sorry, Liz.
fighting about, which was better culture, Greek or Rome, I noticed that Rome's obviously heavily dependent on Greek. Make a compelling case. We can wipe out from history one thing. I mean, the Greeks will still win anyway because you get the the Greek pseudo-Romans. I mean, it's a stupid argument, but that's not the question we're asking about. We're asking about individual works.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, it's interesting. I mean, there's probably not one for the final cut of this, but I've just been reading a history book on the successors to Alexander, a modern history book, because basically the sources for it don't survive properly. There aren't any good books.
Seleucus and...
Yeah, exactly, those guys. And my God, it's a fascinating little period. I thought it was up there with 1st century BC Rome, except it doesn't have the kind of political argument about the nature of government going on, really. So it doesn't have that, but it's got an amazing story,
like
incredibly compelling Game of Thrones, but there just isn't a single great work of history that survives, that encapsulates it, so it's not so well known, and I do wonder whether, a lot of the stuff that we think of as incredibly compelling from history is because we're so indebted to the individual books that have survived.
That wrote them.
It's interesting. Anyway, I think I don't know if you need a wee break, but this brings us quite neatly to the next part of this discussion, which is how can we save some Roman honour here, given that they've had their asses whipped by the Greeks, just in terms of the numbers of books that have gone through.
I mean, ironically, they both probably would have enjoyed that.
They probably would have enjoyed it, both sides would have enjoyed it, exactly, and loved a bit of it. And this brings us to the other thing that has ended up being something we've been discussing over the series, which is the Symposium Challenge. What I think we should call the Supper of Superstars. We've got your Breakfast of Champions, one of the greatest books. Supper of Superstars. Who would you invite to the ultimate dinner party? And this is something we've flirted with, but we haven't done it kind of coherently, really. We've had a fantastic suggestion in from Elizabeth, who has said as follows. She said, what did she say? Where the fuck did she say it? I've got it written down here somewhere. Hang on a minute. Ah, yes. So, surely, she says, the answer is to do a different dinner party for each series.
Yep.
And then you can always do an overall best one at the end. And limit the numbers, because this was a question we were asking, how many people get into the dinner, to exactly the same numbers as the original Symposium. And match it, she says. By which, what she means is, you have, as in the original Symposium, a comedian, a tragedian, a philosopher, a love expert, and a scientist, and a drunk legend who bursts in.
So eight people, but who take the characteristics of the original.
And I thought that was a smashing suggestion.
And it's quite a challenge.
It is a challenge. So I've been thinking about this because I think part of the challenge for this series is we've already got the actual Symposium and it's gone through, right? So we've got that in the tank. We don't need to recreate it, and it's quite hard to think of how you would beat it. It'd be a bold thing to say we can do a better Greek, ancient world dinner party than the one that is recorded by Plato. I mean, there's an argument that he didn't have the right tragedian in there. That if why didn't he have Sophocles or Euripides instead of Pausanias? That sub them in. That would be quite useful.
He was dealing with people that you knew and were alive.
Yeah, and had to be friends with the other people there.
Yeah, we could pick all of those that we want, but sub in anyone from as yet
unborn or already dead. I mean, because I was thinking it would be quite fun to have Herodotus. Like, we know that he was such a great raconteur of drunken stories, right? If only he'd been there to record it. I also thought Alexander the Great.
Yeah,
I mean what a chance! Surely you've got to have him.
But he was a bit stabby.
He was a bit stabby, and he famously used to drink heavily and then occasionally murder people over dinner. So maybe you wouldn't want him if you're actually there.
Well, I mean, could we make sure that people are disarmed?
You're not. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think Alexander the Great would be able to get you with the knife and fork probably. So he would be dangerous. So it's tricky. And you're not going to be able to beat Alcibiades as the drunken legend who comes in. Aristophanes is the funniest guy from the ancient world. You just can't beat it. But I thought, what would Plutarch do? And this is where I think we can rescue our Romans. Plutarch would say, okay, we've got the best Greek dinner party. What would be the best Roman dinner party?
I like
it. Now we've got
because now we've got a challenge.
Exactly. Now, I mean, there's an argument that a Roman dinner party is going to be less philosophical and more orgiastic, possibly?
Possibly. Well, yeah, but they weren't just orgiastic with each other as much as the Greeks were.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
They weren't actually, the big guns weren't sleeping with each other in quite the same way.
No, exactly. So I think, as long as there are no slave girls and boys there.
Right, they can crack on with
that afterwards.
Or during. I mean, but,
take a break between calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to the vomitarium and...
do the business, come back and start talking philosophy.
So I've got number one.
Go on.
But there is a strict limit on what he's allowed to talk about.
Okay.
So, as you probably said, I want to resurrect the shade of Cicero
of course.
and invite him to this party because the man is an absolute legend. However, he is not allowed to talk that much about the Capitoline. No, because I
had to mention it once or twice.
I am interested in it because I think it'd be great to hear it from his point of view. Again. But we have to say, look, look, we love you and you're famous for it, but you don't want to become famous for all history, for being a bit of a bore of it. Yeah. This is your opportunity to redeem it.
So I mean, Cicero, he must have been a great dinner, but I think we've got to let Cicero in. But as you say, we make him down a pint of wine or something if he wangs on too long about the Catiline stuff.
And with Cicero, his nemesis in many ways, although only later in life, of Julius Caesar. Because whilst they were political rivals, if you remember personally, they seemed to get on quite well, or at least
they were civilised.
Caesar sent that letter on the death of
when his daughter died.
Yeah.
But the point is, they wrote to each other as human beings to acknowledge, even though they were on opposite sides of a murderous. They were still senators of Rome. Yeah. I think more than Alexander, Caesar would be able to put his weapons at the door, come in, have a civilised conversation.
But they didn't carry weapons within the basics of Rome.
I mean, if you think about the story of the pirates, he might then go away and put you on a list that you don't want to be on. Yeah. But for the purpose of the dinner party,
and he's a cracking author.
Yeah, that's great. And he's such an interesting. Wouldn't it be amazing to have dinner with Cicero and Caesar?
At what point in his time stream are we?
Interesting. Well, is it a sort of are we in heaven or hell here? And sort of,
I think
we get the whole life.
I think we resurrect them at the point of their death, and they
I like what I'm hearing.
They can talk about all of it, because I'd like to know his perspectives on how his dictatorship went.
Yeah, how did you think it went? We got any regrets?
And hopefully, with the passage of time, Cicero has got over what subsequently happened to him at the.
He no longer has Mark Antony's wife's hairpins coming out of his tongue.
Yeah, I mean, again, Caesar wasn't directly involved in that, so there's no reason to hold a grudge.
No hard feelings. I like what I'm hearing. So this is how we rescue the Ciceros and Caesar of this world. I think we already said that Horace, unfortunately, does not make it because he's such an arse licker.
Yeah.
And he can wait outside, basically polishing the shoes or whatever. Yeah. Playwrights, though. Seneca wrote. He didn't quite make it onto our list, onto our short list.
We didn't consider his.
We didn't look at his plays, but as a tragedian.
Are they any good?
I confess I haven't read them.
Well, I haven't read them either. So
But
we're getting him as a character, though.
But we get him as a character.
Yeah.
I just thought Seneca. He has had dinner with the absolute. With the emperors.
I think it's Seneca.
I think that.
Yeah,
so, Now, who is famous amongst Romans for writing up dinner parties? Answer: Petronius. I mean, that's literally what he was known for, right? But I think we did say, and I don't want to contradict our previous selves, trust our previous selves, we did say that he would not be allowed into the ultimate dinner party, basically because he would just slag everyone off apart from himself.
Yeah.
So I don't really think we want that. So this is where my pitch is. You've been so cruel to him, Marshall. Right? We need a comic voice here. We need an Aristophanic voice. I know he's more of a sort of cynical guy than Aristophanes, but he is cutting, he's amusing, he's witty, sophisticated. He likes nuts. So you can serve some nuts.
I'm willing.
Can we please let me rescue Marshall?
I'm willing to invite Marshall to a dinner party. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
I mean, we'll tell him, unfortunately, that none of this work is fine.
And Juvenal's hand just to rub his face in it. No! Yeah, write an epigram about that. But no one's going to read it. Obviously, in Plato's Symposium, we've got the voice, I can't remember his name now, but the doctor, the sort of scientific voice.
So, is this a place where we can save Lucretius?
It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. Of course, we are going to have then his views on love, which we know are mostly about doggy style being the answer to all of your problems.
He's a man of broad learning and broad interests.
Absolutely. And it's quite a lot of sexual problem.
I think Caesar would probably have quite a good conversation with him about it, and Marshall would write an epigram we'd immediately put in front of him. But,
about his cock or whatever, why it didn't work without Viagra.
Yeah, I think Cicero would be bemused by the whole thing.
But I think we're shaping up for a classic party. Now, obviously, we need the main character, the symposiarch, the Socrates character, and of course the love expert that they talk about. And I was thinking, well, the obvious answer is Ovid, because he's literally a love expert. He literally wrote the book on love.
Yeah, he did, but some of what's in that book,
makes sense.
Well, I'm more thinking about his, self-confessed form for getting himself jerked off onto the table at dinner parties, which is not the sort of party.
I don't want that to be happening at my dinner party. Frankly.
And there's only another 9
well, not
people
to someone
there,
else anyway,
and the 2 of them are us. And there are no women at the party.
It doesn't record. Did the other people at dinner know exactly what was going on? It'd be quite hard to not notice, I would have thought.
I don't know it'd be that hard.
Have you ever done anything like that at a dinner party? Listeners, maybe this is a challenge that we set for our champions here. See if you can get away with it. But I don't think we want that.
No, well, we certainly don't want that.
So I think maybe, is there an argument for Catullus then?
Yeah, there's always
There's always an argument for Catullus.
Because he'd be filthy.
He would be absolutely filthy.
As he got drunker and drunker.
And of course, he does have...
Marshall and Catullus could have a...
Now that would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Yeah. Who can write the dirtiest, little tiny epigram or whatever on love? And of course, Catullus comes free with a love expert. He's obviously got who taught him everything he knew, Clodia.
Yeah, is Claudia coming?
Well, I mean, she used to come hard, from what we understand, from at Crossroads.
She probably sort of it out under the table.
Probably. She probably did, yeah. She also, we think she had a fling with Cicero, of course, so it'd be interesting to know. It'd be an interesting little dynamic. Who do you sit next to?
Well, I think, I'm not sure that Claudia's coming in her own right.
But she's there in, he's describing what she thinks about love. Isn't she?
Well, I think that the whole relationship with Cicero, I mean, if you've both gone out with the same person,
it's awkward.
And it was awkward. Yeah.
She probably had a crack at Caesar as well, I wouldn't be surprised. Most people did.
Yeah.
Lucretius, obviously, he's just sat in the background desperately popping Viagra and thinking, how have I missed out here? And not getting his end away at all. Of course, Lucretius would have a different answer. He would say the goddess of love herself, Aphrodite.
Who Caesar was...
Caesar was descended from. It's a bit awkward, great-great-great-great-grandma.
Yeah.
Now, of course, she has featured in a way goes so far as the sort of the Babylonian equivalent of Aphrodite, of Venus, Ishtar.
Who would kill the men her embrace would
burn them up, basically fuck them to death.
Is it your view that Venus and Aphrodite are indeed the same?
Absolutely, Martin Wesley. Yeah, basically. I mean,
as Ishtar, I'm not sure I agree.
Well, I think there's a lot. There's definitely the thought that she is the Greek and Roman, respectively, equivalent of Ishtar. Slightly different in the sense of not being more such a warrior, although she does fight at Troy.
Like the Canaanite goddess Anat is more
right.
I'm quite interested in Proto-Indo-European gods and how they do. Like the fascinating angle I've talked to us already, and we certainly will at some point, about how some of the Vedic gods are
equivalent. Right.
Yeah.
So
whereas the Romans and the Greeks did have saying, your local deity.
So
is
they
this
might have
one.
said it, but without it actually being
it being true in a sort of religious evolutionary kind of way. But
I think it's a live question.
Here's the real question: who would you want to teach you everything about love? Ishtar, Venus, or Claudia?
Now there's a question. I think we should pose this to our listeners. I think we should have a little poll on this.
Yeah.
Although I do, we could do a double one, because more realistically, with some other friends of this podcast, your mum, my nanny, or the geography teacher.
I remember her. Right.
Well, I think let's ask the listeners what they think. It's an open one. But anyway, I think we've got a cracking dinner party on our hands. We've got one.
Let me recap: Cicero and Caesar.
Yes.
Seneca.
Yeah.
Martial.
Yeah.
Lucretius. Catullus.
Yeah.
And you're thinking we should potentially bring Claudia along, but
Could be awkward, but
it'll be fun, wouldn't it? I don't think we can invite goddesses. I think it breaks.
Yeah. Okay.
So Claudia is Okay, so what about who's our jester?
Who's Alcibiades, who's going to burst in and fuck things up? Well, we have an answer ready-made, as it were, in Plutarch, because Plutarch has done a life of Alcibiades where he talks about all this disgraceful drunken behaviour. He pairs him with a Roman. Mm-hmm. But the Roman he pairs him with, sort of slightly disastrously, I think, is Coriolanus, and we might come to this when we get to Shakespeare.
Yeah.
He's a very different character. The whole point about Coriolanus is he's not a hard-drinking, hard-partying legend. There are other similarities with Alcibiades in terms of his sort of military career, because he keeps swapping sides. That's basically why he's been paired with him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's what we want at all. He's the guy who turns up at your party and basically turns all the lights on, and says, "Can you keep the noise down here?" And maybe he's rung the police because it's too disgraceful. He's the last thing we want.
Coriolanus isn't invited.
So I don't think we can have him. No. So other ideas. I mean, from Plutarch, Mark Antony.
Yeah.
Big drinker.
Yeah. I mean, again, awkward with Cicero.
Yeah, awkward with Cicero. Yes, that is true. I mean, potentially awkward with Caesar, given that he sort of screwed everything up after Caesar was killed. I mean, he got revenge on Philippi.
Yeah, okay. What about I know we said Roman, but if we say Roman period, what about Hannibal Barca?
But that's sitting through the window on an elephant. Yeah. That is quite a good shout. I would love to do it. And then,
because Caesar and Hannibal, you'd think, who never fought off against each other.
Yeah, that would be fascinating.
But surely, in the way that, they looked at Alexander as one of the greats.
Yes.
And people looked back.
This is great enemy.
Caesar, but Hannibal himself, I mean, as a strategist.
Oh, but hang on. Is he turning up as a world-conquering strategist, enemy of Rome, or is he turning up in his incarnation as a small corner shop owner somewhere out east when he, retired and opened Barker and Sons shoe shop?
I mean, we're looking for someone who's going to bring a bit of lively sort of comedy. This is a man who attempted to conquer Rome with elephants.
Over the Alps.
Yeah.
It's a good shout. But I take you...
I don't think he's quite...
It's not quite... No, he's not quite Alcibiades. Just a curveball to chuck at you, though, here. What about Heliogabalus? Yeah. Why not have Heliogabalus turn up, right? Now, that is someone who knew how to party. Knew how to throw a dinner party. Of course, Pseudo-Suetonius talks about the amazing dinner parties that Heliogabalus threw. He'd arrive on a chariot drawn by naked women, for example. Would immediately try to get all of the people present, or both, or all genders, to have sex with him. Yeah, he basically would then sort of divide up the room according to who had the biggest cocks. Well, also he had some form for releasing large cats at the end of the dinner who had a tendency to gobble up the guests. So you win some, you lose something. I don't know. It's a quid pro quo. I don't know if it's worth it for the subsequent release of giant beasts, giant predators.
I think we want people to go away and say they enjoyed this part. It's already going to be awkward.
It is going to be awkward.
I think releasing the Panthers is.
It is. It's going to be. So anyway, there you go. Well, so I've got another suggestion, and this is maybe where we can up the female quotient a little bit, whilst not withdrawing at all from the hard drinking legendariness that we need. Cleopatra.
Now again,
you've now rolled up in a carpet.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine the entrance.
So I like Cleopatra, and the reason is I think we get some.
So
great,
did Caesar, by the way,
and so did Mark Antony.
Of course, yeah.
So if we're taking them at the point of their death. We have some interesting dynamics going on there.
Bring them both in, and then you could ask Cleopatra.
Who's best?
Marshall would ask this question.
Yeah.
Who was better in bed?
Yeah.
Caesar or Mark Antony?
Yeah. And if you've got Claudia there as well, who's presumably like there's sparks.
Sparks. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've got ourselves a serious dinner party there.
Serious dinner party.
Take that, Plato.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the greatest symposium of all time. We've done it.
We've done it.
We've done it better. I mean, and this goes to show, as I've been saying from the beginning, that Rome is as good, if not better, than Greece.
In terms of personalities, I think I think that you made a very strong case. There you go. And then we just need someone to write it up. I was thinking Procopius. He could bring some scurrilous sort of,
Wouldn't his works be immediately destroyed?
They would. That is true.
So maybe someone whose work survives.
There you go. Bob's your uncle. This is an interesting point. My uncle, I've only just realised this. He's called Robert. Bob. I have an uncle called Bob. Bob is my uncle.
Yeah.
And he's quite
a fascinating story.
He's quite a big drinker. He's a man's man.
Well, you can
unashamed of that, and that's fine. He is he's a lively character. By his own description, he gets quite fighty. That's the word he uses when he's had a few drinks.
Scottish uncle?
He's half Scottish, yeah. He's kind of, I'm not drawing any any links between those facts, but yeah, he is a violent drunk. Now, last time I had a drink with him, he said, well, he brought me around. This obviously went against the Scottish part. This was the English part of his heritage that was kicking in. And he said, what do you want? And I said, I'll have a gin and tonic. And he said, oh, what? I was like, fucking hell, it wasn't anything that was going to be controversial. So, gin and tonic? Oh, what? That's a tart's drink. Is it? I don't think it is a tart's drink. I don't even know what a tart's drink is, but if I was had to choose what a tart's drink, I wouldn't say a gin and tonic was a tart's drink.
I see a tart as more of a light sherry.
Oh, really? Were you hanging out with a better class prostitute, clearly? Excellent. Best dinner party ever. I think you would leave a happy customer. Possibly a windy customer. I was thinking lying down and eating, and lying down and drinking. You've got form for this, haven't you?
Yeah,
with the straws.
Yeah.
You reckon that you can drink in bed without even raising yourself? Rome, presumably influenced by the great Greeks and Romans.
Yeah.
Cups of tea were also presumably alcoholic.
Yeah,
beverages.
You're right. I've never really been eating on a couch. This is terrible.
Terrible wind.
But that takes us right back to our first episode, where Tiamat was defeated. The great goddess was defeated by Marduk using wind, strategic deployment of flatulence.
And indeed, didn't her body break asunder under the? And
the world we live in,
is all thanks
this party is being held, was brought about because of wind.
Well, let's not have the party in anyone's womb. I think is the.
I think it's not possible, but to them, because we all live in the womb. Oh, but hold on, we haven't got that one because that's the new release.
You're right. Yeah. We don't have to have that problem.
I mean, we live in her body, but we are unaware
the wreckage thereof. Yeah, exactly, but no one knows.
We're not key
Thank
to that
God
box.
for that. It is now time for our individual poll results. So we've been asking our listeners to vote according to the battle of books that we've been having over these 10 episodes.
Interesting.
And the results are in, and they make for some jolly interesting reading.
So what are we asking them? Are we asking whether they agree with our...
Yeah, we're literally asking them which of these would you go for in each episode. So, so people have voted.
So we're checking to see whether they agree correctly with us.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't limited the number of votes, so it's possible that, for example, the Horace Club seem to have voted quite heavily. Or, it might just be one person voting endlessly. We don't have the sophisticated polling techniques.
A quick look, so that Marshall seems to score quite high.
I can't possibly comment on that. No, this is real polling. So Gilgamesh was the obvious winner in the first episode. I don't think any surprises there. He was more or less the only person standing anyway because of the others ruling themselves out of contention. Second episode, a lot of more people voted for Homer than Virgil. You seem to be more familiar with Homer. I think that's interesting.
Was there a split by Iliad versus
Yeah,
Odyssey?
Odyssey did very well. I mean, the familiarity. So the Iliad and Odyssey was basically level pegging.
That's probably down to Ulysses 31.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
But very few votes for Virgil. But I don't know if that's just because people are less familiar with Virgil nowadays.
We just say it's a cracking. I can't remember if I mentioned it in the shortcuts. Almost certainly did. But the Naxos audiobook is very good.
Yeah,
but I think it is now overdue for some sort of like adaptation.
Lots of parts of history, Virgil would have been much more familiar.
Yeah.
Dante knew about Virgil, didn't have a clue really about Homer, so it's interesting. But of course, we rescued both Virgil and Homer, so it's okay. We also rescued all four of our playwrights, ancient Greek playwrights, disastrously, but Sophocles was the clear winner amongst our
And I think rightly so.
I think that's fair. Absolutely fair.
Yeah. I'm glad to see Oedipus and Colonus
against
love.
Now, you'll be pleased to know Sappho was the standout winner in our ancient love poetry. So I think that's another argument that we've got to keep Sappho. As I say, controversial voting. If you remove the all of my votes from Marshall, which I have to fess up to, I suppose it was a long afternoon pressing that button, but even that was not enough to overwhelm the number of votes we had for Horace. So that was one where we got, as it were, the wrong answer and our listeners were right.
Horace over Juvenal.
Over Juvenal, yeah. Now, what we don't know is whether people were voting for Horace poems that were not satires. So, because Horace brings other things to the party. Juvenal did not have a whole other load of stuff. He just wrote angry satire.
And I think this is an issue which has come up before, isn't it? That we have taken authors who actually had very varied outputs and compared them as one type of writer.
Right.
And so we think, we're losing all the works. But it's really fair to say that essentially the non-satirical works of Horace have never even been considered.
No, indeed. And and of course, it's odd because the whole point of our podcast is to say breadth is important, but writers have been punished for breadth.
But guys, we've got to have a structure. Come on, throw us a bone.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is different. You come up with a better list.
Well, it's too late. Horace has been consigned to the flames. No one even... Who's Horace? We can't even remember. He's gone forever. Sorry, guys. Herodotus was the clear winner amongst the Greek historians.
Okay, actually, that surprises me a little bit. Probably use the 300.
I wondered that. I think the familiarity with the story of...
And it's great, and it's longer than the history of the Peloponnesian War. It's considerably longer.
Yeah.
But, Thucydides is such a modern writer.
How did you find sitting in Syracuse and reading the stuff about that, the destruction of the Athenian expedition force? It's classic stuff, isn't it? And of course, you persuaded me that we also had to keep Xenophon, and what a classic read that was. Again, crying out for an adaptation that isn't set in 1970s New York, that would maybe make that story more famous.
Yeah, I think if it was more widely known.
Yeah.
Come on, Netflix.
Come on, it's just obvious, and of course it's out of copyright, so happy days. For
Why
the Roman historians,
we pitch it?
Well,
go to Netflix and they commission anything. We only want one season, don't we? It's a limited series.
We definitely don't want to have the second series about. Okay, we've got our way home, and now we have to do the paperwork. That's the problem with so many Netflix series, though, isn't it? That's literally what happens. That it's just like, we could flog this. Don't get me started. Tacitus, I'm afraid, came through over Livy. So
I understand. I'm not going to die in a ditch over that. No. I mean, Tacitus is the better writer.
Yep, I agree. I think that reflects on our listeners, frankly. Yeah. Your man Cicero, he won against Demosthenes. Absolutely fair. It's fine. We've rescued him through the Supper of Superstars. Now, it's interesting. Caesar won against Plutarch and Suetonius. So our listeners disagreed with us on that.
Yeah. But again,
they're wrong. So,
again, that's not something which really upsets me because that was a hard decision.
It was that was probably one of the hardest ones. And then, interestingly, in answer to your Plato versus Aristotle Aristotle was the winner, but it was very, very close. So, Now, there was quite a lot of chat about military history. Quite a lot of our listeners into military history on the people who've written in, and in particular, a lot of people interested in this story, which I think was in the Livy, if I remember it, about Hannibal meeting Scipio when they're old men and asking about who was the best.
Who was the best? Who was the greatest?
Who was the greatest? And basically Scipio sort of, he's fishing for compliments, and Hannibal just sort of crushes him, but then, he's like, well, Alexander was obviously the best. Hard to disagree with that. Mm. But people have written and said, Alexander didn't actually have to face any great opponents. He fought huge armies, but he didn't fight any famous, generals.
Yeah. So acknowledging the fact that if we talk about Caesar, of course, has grown up on stories of Alexander.
Indeed.
And therefore it's really difficult. Just like as we were saying, well, could you compare Roman culture to Greek culture? Well, no, because Roman culture is so influenced by Greek culture. How could you have one without the other? But accepting for a second that you somehow could.
Right, yeah.
Who do you think would win between Caesar and Alexander?
Yeah, assuming that you could somehow
No one's got
equalise their armies, so that one doesn't have an advantage for having better technology. No one's got elephants, right? I mean, it's a fascinating question. Of course, Caesar beat Pompey, and Pompey was not a bad general.
Yeah, Pompey was great. I mean, he was the greatest.
He was the greatest. He was. The clue was in the name. But of course, I don't think it necessarily works like that. I would say Napoleon's obviously a better general than Wellington, but when they met, Wellington won. Hannibal, I would say, was better than Scipio, but when they met, Scipio won.
Yeah.
So it's a really tricky one.
Luck is a real factor in military.
It's a lot of
you
luck.
can prepare, but to a certain extent, fog of war.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much on
all the stuff we
throw
go
of
to
the dice. Jagd Hest. But I also think that Hannibal would be, if I had to put money on it, someone who could beat Alexander, I would say Hannibal probably. But he wouldn't say that himself. So I think it's a fascinating question. We've had different answers in.
What do people think?
Yeah. Basically, we had proponents of all four of them.
Yeah.
So
it just goes to show how difficult the question is.
Exactly.
I mean, again, maybe this is my bias showing. I'd probably go for Caesar, but acknowledging that Caesar has had the advantage of studying the others.
Right. No, I think it's a good answer. Interesting. Now, we also, because we've asked specific questions all the way through our series, one of them was, could people write in with their suggestions of other great speakers? Those are from our rhetoric episode. We haven't spoken much about this today.
What we had was our great idea back then that there needs to be a resurgence of an art form where people actually pay to go to the theatre and hear speeches. I mean, there's so many out of work, actors coming up with ridiculously stupid ideas for plays. And going, I want to put on my lifelong musical about working in a co-op or something. It's like it's like, guys, just it's out of copyright. It's great stuff. They just become famous for doing that.
I couldn't agree more.
Where's the next Kenneth Branagh? You should use a straw.
Where's the last? Well, we have had some suggestions in for speakers that weren't mentioned. We've got Gladstone versus Disraeli, of course, a famous. People used to go and watch them argue against each other in Parliament because
they're a little bit out of our period.
They're very much out of our period. Well, if you remember, this was all throughout the whole history. We were talking about Martin Luther King and Elizabeth I. Palmerston, Viscount Palmerston, great sort of speech writer.
I mean, controversially, you're going to also have some people like Adolf Hitler in there, aren't
it is funny you should mention that. Someone did suggest Hitler. Now, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think this came out in the comment. They were not endorsing what he was saying. I think the point they were making was he was a dangerously good speaker. He was someone who, like we talked about with the Roman crowds, he could whip up a crowd through his dark charisma. And I definitely didn't get the sense that this listener was in favour of what he was proposing.
I'd like to say that I don't think Hitler is as great as has been said, because I think a lot of it also relies on the
technology.
Well, not just that, but spears, architecture.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, obviously, in the early days, that doesn't exist, but later on, it's all such choreographed.
Right, not when he's in the beer hall, but when he's in,
it's in like 7 people in
rally and thousands of people all lined up.
So what we think of as these great moments, so many people have contributed to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what I don't remember from my sort of 20th century history is a moment where Hitler, or actually thinking about it, I can't think of any moments where someone has done what happened. We are told with Mark Antony and Bruce, where literally the politics were changed by a speech, changing what the crowd was doing at the time, and then say, right, we're going to go and of course. But
I think Hitler had a lot of people there who were not on board with his message anyway. He had to convince.
Well, this point, because another slightly dark situation. Donald Trump, of course, when he whipped up a crowd to march, but he wouldn't exactly. But he wouldn't put him down as a great rhetorician, would you? Let's face it, a man could barely talk. But he did influence the crowd to do something potentially. So that's.
But he wasn't speaking; he was tweeting, wasn't it?
Well, no, he did a speech, didn't he? Where he addressed a crowd outside. And I can't remember what he said. What the phrase was that was deemed to have started there. Anyway, we don't want to get into modern politics, but anyway, he's obviously not a great speaker. But it's an interesting question. Lincoln was the other one that people said. Clearly a very great speaker. So and his words are etched in marble. For all time. So
it's compelling.
Now, what is not compelling, our listeners thought, was your question about Dalmatians, incestuous Dalmatians, dogs.
Yeah, there's 101 of them. Yeah.
Well, there are 303 of them potentially.
Of course.
But
as is the sequel. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the sequel.
You haven't even seen it, so you don't know what you're talking about.
The question was it just one more Dalmatian or further 102? I think that was the point.
This question raised absolutely no response from Alice's at all. No one was the slightest bit interested, and I don't propose to talk about it any further.
What was the incestuous angle?
You wondered whether. I mean, to be honest, I don't wonder.
with that many Dalmatians, how are they going to partner up?
Yeah, well, I think the question is, could 101 Dalmatians be if you just put them on an island, after several generations, would they have become so inbred that they were no longer a functioning species, or could
Are you telling me that no geneticist
has watched 101 Dalmatians?
Yeah, has answered this.
I don't think Disney got a geneticist in and consulted them on that.
In terms of, but that isn't what happens in the film. They're not on an island.
I haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, there's not an island. The point is,
it doesn't matter whether it's an island or not. The question is, was that they're only allowed to breed amongst themselves?
I can't even remember the conversation, to be honest.
You obviously haven't listened to your own podcast for the last 3 weeks, desperately trying to edit out all of the crap that you say. But anyway, we did pose that question.
I can't believe that no one wrote in.
No, but we did have some responses on another question that you posed, which was best sequels.
Yeah.
Obviously talking about Homer. Now, Miss C 1980, or possibly Miss C 1980, who knows? But I don't want to make any assumptions about Miss C's age. But she has put forward the following, which actually I think that does possibly age her, because a lot of them from the 80s. We've got Ghostbusters 2.
Now, Ghostbusters 2.
Classic.
I loved Ghostbusters 2, and that terrified me, the Vigo, the Scourge of Moldava,
yes.
the Prince of
Wallachia, yeah.
The problem is, it isn't actually very good. And I'm really disappointed to say. So basically, the first Ghostbusters film is actually an incredibly adult film. When you rewatch it, it's got swearing.
This man has no dick.
Yeah, it's got a lot of adult humour in there. Like some of it subtle, some of it it's clearly a sort of
I am the gatekeeper.
18, sort of film.
It should be.
Or 15 at least.
Yeah.
But when you get to Ghostbusters 2, you've had the real Ghostbusters cartoon series has come out from there. And they've done a lot of merchandising, and it's now being aimed a lot more as a sort of UPG. Well, definitely a PG because it was terrifying. That's the painting and the nanny, the flying nanny. Oh. Played by the guy from played by that guy from Ally McBeal. But the point is, as a child, I viewed these films as
equally great.
Yeah. But actually, as adult, it's a bit like Return of the Jedi, which was one of my favourite Star Wars films growing up. But now you realise it's...
Well, Star Wars 2 is another one that Miss C has mentioned.
Well, I'm not... You see, Empire Strikes Back is actually, I think, greater than New Hope. Yeah. However...
Assuming that's what she meant by Star Wars 2, of course.
Yeah, although Attack of the Clones is greater than Phantom Menace, although my brother would disagree. However,
we need to have words with your brother.
I don't think The Empire Strikes Back is a sequel per se. Maybe it is. It's listed as part of a trilogy.
It's episode 5. Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, she says.
Yeah, I mean that's better than Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah.
You don't have a 300-page digression into a meeting, basically minutes of the Council of Elrond.
I think that even though they integrated the bits with Sam and Frodo and Gollum, it broke it up so that you don't have it as a separate book. It's still really boring whenever they go to it.
Still walking through the bogs. Indiana Jones, but she says Last Crusade. That's actually that's the threequel, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade is the weakest of the original.
No, The Last Crusade is the best. Dr. Schneider.
Yeah. Other than Dr. Schneider, who helped you through a difficult period in your life.
One.
Yeah. The Last Crusade is definitely the weakest.
It's definitely the best. No, Tom Stoppard was an unacknowledged screenwriter.
Are you telling me that you think it's better than Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I'm telling you that not just
I know there are some people who don't like the Temple of Doom, but they're wrong. But
you can't even put that in the same.
Temple of Doom isn't a sequel; it's a prequel.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That is interesting. Okay, that is. Interesting point. My son had an answer to this, by the way. My son's 6, so he's fairly limited in his... But he said Oi Dog is a worthy sequel to Oi Frog. Okay. And indeed, he would say the entire franchise. I mean, the character development arguably has lost something of the complexity of the first book.
I'm not familiar with...
wait till episode 100. Another poll, not one of ours, but I thought you would enjoy this. Inspired by the Agricola and by... Claudius, which you lent me,
and it's being
it's now being re-shown on iPlayer for High Time 2. Obviously, there's a chapter called "A God in Colchester." So Claudius was made a god, and there was a temple to him in Colchester, which survives. Subsequently became a Norman fortress, and after that, a museum. It's the Colchester Town Museum, basically. It is a fantastic one. I cannot recommend it enough if you're ever in Colchester. There's also a pizzeria next door with the part of the Roman walls that Boadicea burnt down. Is a part of the wall.
Well, I'm just going to have a dissuasion. In Syracuse, because I meant to tell you. You can sort of sit eating some fantastic, food in the Piazza del Duomo.
Right.
The Duomo, the cathedral itself, is a temple to Jupiter, I believe, and which still has its Ionic columns, which then
which was then turned into a church,
which then became a mosque, which then became the Norman Church again, and it's like, so the whole thing is...
So it's done the works, basically.
It's like 2,200 years old.
Wow.
And, I mean, actually, it's not particularly impressive, because, like, most of it...
architectural mess, presumably.
And like, so much of Syracuse was badly destroyed in an earthquake, like, 300 years ago. A lot of it's Baroque, and, Sicilian Baroque, and overbuilt. But in terms of... I mean, there are more interesting examples of similar things. But to walk past the walls and realise there are bits where you can just see the original columns there, because there was a ruined temple there. I think that's the Temple of Jupiter. I think this was the Temple of Minerva or whatever. But the point is that you walk in, you can go and hear Mass now. So currently, in use religious sign that has been continuously in use.
With different religions. Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's fascinating. So Colchester, this is no longer a religious building, but they are now a museum. And they had their own poll, which was, do you think that Boudicca was right to destroy Colchester? And the visitors to this museum, most of whom presumably came from Colchester, are Colchesterians, voted yes, by 59% to 41%. Yes, it was right. They were right to burn Colchester to the ground and kill the entire population.
Now, do you think they were, just because they were, against foreign invasion and, they wanted a sort of British queen for British people? Or do you think it's a comment more on, the no doubt hundreds of pounds worth of damage which would be done if you destroyed Colchester?
Well, I did wonder if there was a sort of Brexiteer kind of... it's a deep Brexit country, Colchester, so...
Well, yeah, we don't want a foreign Roman.
Yeah, exactly. We want our own British people to come and mess it up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
or do you think it's just about a self-loathing about the underinvestment in Colchester?
I mean, Colchester has seen better days, I think. I mean, and better millennia.
Well, the better days were during the Roman occupation.
It's
where the military prison is for the British Armed Forces.
Is that right?
So
that's where you get sent.
If you get misbehaved, you get sent to Colchester. So,
oh dear.
Yeah,
not good. Where you can worship Claudius. Speaking of Brexit, we have had a few sort of political comments in, I suppose, saying from both sides, actually, or all sides of political debate, being cross with us for assumed positions, which I don't think we've taken any political positions. We've taken some political positions about some 5th century Athenian politics.
Any occasional political position should have been cut out. Should have been cut out of the edit.
Yes,
and we're probably inconsistent because we're enlightened centrists, aren't we?
Classic centrist dads, aren't we? Well, so I think if we're getting attacked from both sides, that usually puts us in the right place. We have a couple of comments pro and anti Jess Phillips and what we said about Jess Phillips.
We didn't say anything about Jess Phillips. You said something about Jess Phillips. Don't know.
Well, I would just like to say, in my own defence, obviously we slightly picked on Jess Phillips very unfairly because of the Philippics, and it was the sort of pun on the name. Obviously, we're massive fans of Jess Phillips on this show. Not saying I necessarily agree with her on all points, but I don't think there's any excuse. We had someone writing very rude about Jess Phillips. Clearly the sort of comment, by the way, that female politicians get a lot, totally unacceptable, and basically whoever that guy was can fuck off. This is why we don't talk about politics on this podcast, basically. So this is not a safe space, but it's an annoying
fact that we have to accept about modern culture, that people...
Everything's politicised.
Well, but everyone wants to belong to a tribe where you all hold the same values as each other. So you might agree on everything that we say, and then we'll say one thing which you disagree with, and then suddenly you cancel us and we're not involved.
Right.
I mean,
you can't cancel us.
Caesar wrote letters to Cicero. I mean, they were civilised, even though
they were literally killing each other. But no, I think that's right. I mean, life is more important than politics.
But so be rude to us by all means, but not to other people.
Yeah, I think that's right. We encourage people to write in, be as rude as you like, but only about us. And you have been. I think that's basically brings us towards the end. We've had some interesting conversations about where we go next. We are absolutely committed. There was someone who asked about this, to not just doing the Western canon of literature, but we are going to need some more time. Listeners, bear with us to read.
We've had a bit of a debate about this, haven't we? It's fair to say, like, when you say we're absolutely committed, essentially,
I am absolutely committed.
My view has been not that I'm not interested in doing the non-Western canon, but because I am a Westerner. And because I understand the culture that I have grown up from, and the one our culture is derived from, Greek and Roman, and some Middle Eastern, sort of Near Eastern, I know what we're talking about there. And my only concern has been...
There is a weakness in your audience.
Yeah, to a certain extent. So my only concern has been that if we go to start looking at Far Eastern cultures, which are ancient and complex as our own,
Yeah.
We know nothing
very
about them. I
interesting.
cannot in any way talk with any degree of knowledge about 5th century China, BC, in the way that I can about 5th century Greece. So my concern has been that if we limited ourselves, we're sort of damned if we do, damned if we don't. If we limit ourselves to being the 100 great works of Western literature, we will be accused rightly of not taking a holistic view and doing the proper battle of the actual books. That said, if we do we go historically, what comes next, we're off to doing the 4 Chinese classics. They're going to make an absolute fool of ourselves, even more than we've done before. So I have had a proposal to you, which is that we should do those, giving ourselves a bit more time to learn more about it, but that we should proceed with European history now, and that we're fine to do that until whatever's happening outside in the world starts to influence
because they're
European.
completely separate.
Completely separate.
Yes.
We're essentially cracking on human civilization in different streams here. They're going to come together.
The streams will cross, like in Ghostbusters 2.
Ghostbusters 2, yeah. But not yet. And for that reason, I think that will be a bit better.
But I take your point. I take your point, and I agree. And so we're going to crack on. Series 2 is going to be basically medieval and Renaissance Western literature.
I mean, what's happened to late antiquity?
Well, Procopius was it, and unfortunately you just burned him. Brutally.
Yeah,
so it's the next 1,000 years.
The fall of
1500,
Rome onto the Renaissance.
We've got some Arthurian stuff, great
because
stuff.
When you've got 10 series or something, doing the first 3,000 years in Series 1, the next 1,000 in Series 2, and then giving yourself 8 seasons of describing the modern period.
Exactly. It makes sense.
More books published in the modern period.
A lot more, a lot.
Oi frog and oi dog.
Well, the author is still living, fortunately, and still churning out sequels. There's even an oi dog platypus. It's one to look forward to. Anyway, another poll that we ran was: would you kill your daughter to change the weather? And we got Iphigenia, and the answers came in pretty resoundingly. No, 88% of our listeners.
Well, it surely depends on the daughter.
But I mean, this reason is okay. That means 12%.
Yeah.
12% were either they would sacrifice their daughter, or they don't know. It depends on the circumstances.
I think that given the
12%.
As that phrase.
This might be a small numbers issue, but that's at least one listener. No, it must be more than that.
As that is phrased, I agree. That doesn't sound good.
It doesn't sound good.
In a specific context.
Crack on. And I particularly think that given obviously we talked about my daughter and the burping incident in the cinema. Yeah. I have to say there have been moments. I hope she never listens to this, but there have been moments. Our most popular poll by quite some margin was: how do you want to die? Inspired by Socrates and Lucretius in episode 10. So the choice was hemlock, knock back some hemlock in your wine, or overdose on Viagra. And you will be pleased to know that hemlock was the clear winner. 75%. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
So, it's not clear why you can't do both.
Well, I mean, that's how I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never take me alive.
You don't mix your drink and drugs. So this brings us neatly to our finale, which is to talk about our merchandising.
Yeah.
So
where the real money's made.
This is where this is where any money's made, as far as I'm concerned. You've got to keep us in booze, guys. We have got some cracking Breakfast of Champions t-shirts
featuring our logo,
and they're also available to buy, by the way, on our website. We definitely don't take
along with some mugs
and other merchandise.
Yeah, I mean, we'll work on the cufflinks.
Which we're working on. Yeah. I was thinking maybe wristbands.
If you can order it on Redbubble,
you can get it. Absolutely. So a vital gap in the market now.
These t-shirts, just to be clear, will be signed.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, they can be signed.
I will do anything for money.
Yeah.
For drinks money,
I can't read our signatures anyway, so...
No, exactly. It's just a squiggle.
We'll get some
X
underpaid
is mark.
Chinese man to add them before he ships them out from the factory.
Yeah, absolutely. All ethically sourced, of course.
Perhaps we could sign them with the signatories of the people at the Symposium of Champions.
Oh, no, that is an idea, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I wondered if we might have not just Breakfast of Champions, but some other stuff in there as well, Symposium of Champions. I was thinking, we were talking about Philosopher's Socks. Probably Lucretius. I got you the Socrates socks.
You did, yeah. Which now means that I appreciate that. And I have Aristotle, which now means I now need to get the Plato as well.
To get the series, to get the trilogy. But
until Thales comes out.
But
they're very damp.
Well, I mean, exactly. Water socks.
Actually, I do need some aqua socks.
Do you? Because you do your
kayaking. Yeah.
Well, so we thought Lucretius socks.
Oh yeah.
And then I just thought just a little picture of him, bearded chap, and then just a slogan: "Dare to ask about other worlds," and doggy style.
Yeah.
I mean, who would not want to wear those socks? We have some quite depraved listeners, and I've been pleased by some of the messages that come through. I've had some sophisticated ones as well. So, what do you think about this lesbia? Possibly not her real name, but maybe it is. You never know.
Parents in the 60s.
We had a fan mail from Lesbia, and she said, "Hi guys, I love the podcast. I would have stopped listening if you had not let Sappho through, so it's a good job we did let Sappho through. The Empress Theodora," she says, "there are mosaics in Ravenna, in a church, that show that she was smoking hot."
Now, I don't think there's any question of that. Actually, Ravenna was where I was intending to go until I got cheap flights to Syria.
Oh really? I'd love to go to Ravenna. I've never seen these. I've seen pictures of these.
I love a bit of Romanesque. But Theodora, she was Justinian's.
Justinian's missus, yeah.
She's the one who's a back.
She took it every which way, including with geese.
Was she the one who was a prostitute before?
Well, yeah. I mean, openly so. Loved it.
No, I know, but I think that she wasn't the only one. There was another one as well.
Oh, I think there were probably several, but I mean, I think she was quite unashamed, according to Procopius. Anyway, I think it was good. Anyway, I'm pleased, Lesbia, that you have been enjoying the podcast. I hope you didn't get too upset by the lesbian dialogue in Thucydides. It didn't involve the actual lesbians of Lesbos, firstly, in the Peloponnesian War. But an interesting question about mosaics. I mean, can you tell someone... I saw some interesting mosaics last week on this thing. I mean, we're saying that this is a portrait in mosaic form. Can you tell what someone looks like from a mosaic? When you go see a mosaic, if you were using Tinder, something that
I think that people don't use the mosaic overlay option in their photos.
Is that a thing, right?
I mean, I think you can do it, but it doesn't seem to be very common. So that probably gives you the answer.
It probably would. Although I was interesting. So Lesbia liked the mosaic of Theodora. I've seen one of Alcibiades that is clearly a portrait of someone. Yeah. Very, very distinctive, very sort of attractive.
It's famous one of Alexander, haven't you?
Yes.
What's interesting is I've never really understood. I mean, mosaics are incredibly impressive. I remember there was a great story of a chap they were excavating a graveyard in somewhere in England, and they dug up and realised there was Roman mosaic there. And every 10 years they would take up the graveyard so people could look at it until eventually the family members went.
Hang on, James, this is not very comfortable.
So this guy had apparently been visited as a child and gone back every 10 years as long as he could, and realised he's never going to see it, and made a perfect replica of it. They was taking it on tour.
Mosaics?
Yeah, I took it on tour, and I went to see it when it was at school in Bristol, and it really stuck with me, and it was incredible. But my question has always been, if you can colour different bits of rock with painted, and then you can pick them, why
not just paint the whole
you clearly have the concept of it. So
do you think someone finally had that breakthrough and thought, oh fuck?
Yeah, so you're clearly making an actual choice to do it in a mosaic form.
Yeah, because it was the mosaics I was looking at last week. They were picking stones that were they hadn't yet got to the colouring thing. Yeah. But there was one that was 3 million tesserae. 3 million. I mean, do you think how long that would take to do, put in your bathroom or whatever?
Well, some of these new Lego sets are almost as big. I mean, I was interested in getting the Superstar Destroyer.
I want the Death Star one.
Yeah, but they just, I mean,
I get my son to make it.
It's about 3
my son is brilliant at Lego. He could do it.
Yeah.
He would do it if I said, you have no pocket money to finish that. And by the way, Oi Dog is not a worthy sequel.
How much are we expecting to make from selling our things for you to be able to afford?
They're quite pricey, these things.
£800 or something.
Well, the thing that's going to make the big profit is...
I spend all my money on lightsabers.
Do you? Yeah. I spend all mine on booze. But I thought I could make it back by selling an Ashurbanipal t-shirt, or maybe poster. Talking about inspirational kind of slogans. You could put it in the office.
Yeah.
Eat, drink, fuck.
Yeah.
But in cuneiform. Yeah, exactly. Just in case anyone's offended. But I know you don't like things on the wall, but I think we agreed you would go for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got these merchandising as prizes, and I thought this is
good. Prizes for what?
I think prizes for our best contributions from our listeners.
Yep.
And our fans, and we have had...
do we have any fans who are not listeners? Is there a distinction between the two sets? My mother, I'm sure, is very proud.
Exactly, but let's hope she never listens. But by the way, I'll call you later. Yes, so I think Elizabeth, who had the idea about the Symposium of Superstars, I think clearly has deserved a prize for this series. A brilliant suggestion. So we will send. If you get in touch, drop us an address, and we will send you a Breakfast of Champions T-shirt. Congratulations!
Well done.
Well done. You have made this podcast better. We also have another contender though.
Okay.
So this was we set an epigram competition, if you remember. Catullus, and we've had a very clever epigram in the style of Edward Lear, that I know you're a big fan of.
Yes.
So what do you think of this? There once was a brave man called John. He drank loads and had a big dong. He said he loved anal, capital A. His chat wasn't banal, but his technique was so right, it's wrong.
Okay.
And this was sent in by one Miss A Storm at hotmail.com.
Well, I mean, you say it was going to start with Lear. Of course, if it was Lear, it would have gone, there once was a brave man called John, he drank loads and had a big dong. He said he loved anal, his chat wasn't banal. That brave man
called John, which would be fucking hopeless.
Yeah.
So it's better than Lear.
It's better than Lear.
But is it as good as Catullus?
Yeah, well...
Also, is it really from Miss A Storm? Do we believe that email address? I don't know. Maybe the could be.
Are you suggesting that exotic dancers don't write epigrams?
I just have a slight suspicion that might be the actual John writing in. I mean, the big dong is the giveaway there.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, anyway, we will send a Breakfast of Champions t-shirt to that. It's clearly the winning epigram. Whether
once he gives us the address, it should be relatively easy to work it out.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of John, I think it is worth just saying, finally, that obviously we encourage drinking, but we encourage drinking in moderation, as Aristotle would say, because you don't want to end up like John, or indeed like you.
Well, indeed not. Yeah.
So it's important. So I think that is a good way to end our series. Go forth, eat, drink, and fuck. Dutchman will say, but in moderation.
Yeah, I mean,
eat, drink, and fuck responsibly.
Exactly. Well, that's actually the...
Eat, drink, fuck, and read responsibly.
Yeah, I mean, it's orgy. You should be taking. You should take proper precautions.
Take precautions.
Eat, drink, and fuck responsibly is the advertising standard agency provides. I don't think people are taking seriously the adverts anymore, so they're changing them up a bit.
Well, let's hope they put it in English and not in Acadian. Well, there you go. So, thank you all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for writing in. Thank you for your ideas and your enthusiasm.
That's the season 1 wrap. We'll see you in a couple of 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Which might be how long it takes
to record
read the Sum of Theologica. Yeah.
There you go. Carry on being a champion. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
It's a wrap.
Sing it first from the moment when... Yeah. You have a speech and drama qualification, you know.